So hi everyone. As the voice just said, I'm Derek Korn. I'm executive editor of Modern Machine Shop magazine. I've seen a few familiar faces here today, so that's been great. So I'm here to help with the workforce development discussion we're going to have today. So life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? Robbie Earnhardt, president of Superior Tool in Raleigh, North Carolina, was set to be part of this discussion today. I got an email from him 2 days ago, very long, kind of apologetic, very apologetic, saying he's very sorry. He's just not going to be able to do the panel discussion. The Hurricane Florence is barreling right towards his house. So I think I don't remember what my reply was. It was something like, would you please go home now? So I'm just saying that to say that a lot of people's lives are going to get turned upside down here real quickly, so keep them in your thoughts. Luckily for me, John Silveria stepped up to help out here on the far, in the maroon coat there, shirt there. John is executive director of the ACSMB. That is the American Center for Student-Run Manufacturing Businesses. And he's going to talk a little bit about that today. But we also have Guy Loudon. He's executive director of the Jane Addams Resource Corp, which has a couple locations here in Chicago and a new one in Baltimore, actually. So I'm going to let both of these gentlemen talk a little bit about their organizations. I have some of my own questions I'm going to ask as we start the ball rolling. But obviously, as before, if you have questions, please step up to the microphone and ask away. Our hope here is that it just gives you food for thought on how you might change or modify or go about recruiting, developing talent when it's so sparse out there for all of us. So let's get started. Guy, why don't you start with your presentation, please?
Okay, will do. Thank you. So I'm with Jane Addams Resource Corporation here in Chicago. We're a nonprofit workforce development corporation, and our training programs are focused on manufacturing and metal fabricating. Our mission is pretty simple. We help a variety of low-income workers work toward, community residents work toward self-sufficiency through a combination of skills training and bundled services. I realize that in our limited time today, our focus is going to be more on training and the content of skills training, but I just wanted to also introduce that we're working with highly barrier job seekers often, so there's a whole range of supportive services that are thoughtfully integrated into the delivery of the programs. So we're doing skills training that's aligned with middle skills gaps in advanced manufacturing. Our core competencies are in CNC machining, welding. This year we're kind of relaunching a brake press program that we're very excited about that will include CNC brake press. We realize in working with the populations that we work with, though, that combining really high quality skills training needs to be complemented with support services. Typically the people in our programs have one of two stories. Either their life fell apart and they lost their job, or they lost their job and their life fell apart. So coming back the other way, we need to be working on the whole individual. So as I mentioned, our core competencies are in CNC, welding. We've got a long pedigree in stamping as well. Within that model, we have really two families of training programs at JARC. We're best known for our careers and manufacturing programs, and they provide job training and employment services for a whole variety of unemployed adult populations. That could be dislocated workers whose skills have simply become obsolete and they need to be skilled up, to more highly barrier job seekers, people with criminal backgrounds and convictions. It could be a female head of household who is suddenly 32 and she's been working hard raising kids but doesn't have skills that are going to translate in the labor market. Alongside that, we have a second family of training programs. Our business and workforce services design and execute customized worker training out on the firm side. So that would be an instance where one of our employer partners says, look, we need you to come in and provide some MIG welding training for this department of people, and at the end of it, we need to ensure that they all attain this AWS credential so that we can bid on this job in this supply chain. So we do very customized work out on the firm side as well. But taken all together, those two programs, job training programs and worker training programs, means that we're trying to work at all points along the career paths in welding and CNC and in stamping. So our best employer engagements are those that they're hiring people out of our job training programs, but they're also having us come in and provide customized worker training for their existing workers. My focus here on our job training programs, our careers manufacturing programs I mentioned, focus on job training and employment for a variety of unemployed adult populations. Within that umbrella, we have a CNC machinist program, a welding program, a brake press program, and what's called a manufacturing bridge program. I'm sure this isn't news to everyone here. A lot of times the people that come and they want to be in our training programs, they come in and they're reading or doing math at a 6th or 7th or 8th grade level. So obviously there's no way we can teach them trig and how to program a CNC if they're doing math at that level. So we've got a bridge program kind of integrated into the start of our program that people are either going to test past bridge into an advanced program, or they're going to test into bridge, complete bridge, and be prepared to study CNC welding or brake press. So there might be more questions about that when we get into the Q&A. I don't want to drill down too deep on any one specific program design. But what I have, if people are interested, is I brought some sheets, just kind of a one-page summary of our overall program design. So if you want, during Q&A or after, I'll be around down here, and I can share some materials with you if you've got follow-up questions about how we design any of the programs. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these two slides, but real quickly, we've got a pretty strong track record of typically looking since 2006, roughly 90% completion, placement, and retention rates. This is a year-old data. I know starting salaries in FY18 were significantly higher. They were in the high 15s, close to $16 an hour. We've placed 548 people with over 400 companies in the last 7 years. So I'm pleased with those numbers, and 73 of those companies have hired between 2 and 51 graduates. A little bit about the populations we work with. This is actually a low number. In a typical year, about half of our trainees have criminal backgrounds. We study the data almost every year, and almost every year what we see is that our trainees with criminal backgrounds outcomplete, outplace, and outretain our trainees who don't have criminal backgrounds. Now, that doesn't obviously mean that every single trainee with a criminal background is better than everyone who doesn't. But what it does mean, if you're really good at identifying people that are serious about making a U-turn in their life and seizing what may be this last best opportunity, you've got gold. And we're pretty good at that. And we've got some pretty thoughtful approaches and systems that we've developed over the years in working with people with that particular set of challenges. We've also worked with a lot of partners to make our programs more accessible to female job seekers and people that are maybe coming into manufacturing that aren't the typical profile of who might have been in a job training program in the past. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes focused on what we consider to be some of our evolved best practices, some of the things that make our program design very distinctive. We don't look and feel like a school, and we don't want to. Our program is meant to be a simulated work environment. It's meant to be a very practical, hands-on curriculum built around industry credentials, that is based on the standards of industry. So one of our best practices is that our program is, our job training program is on an open entry, open exit basis, meaning that if we accepted you on Friday, you could literally start on Monday. So that has advantages for everybody. For the job seeker, it means real-time job training and employment services. they're unemployed now. They need a training program now, not at the start of the winter semester. So that's an advantage for them. But for the employer, it means that we have a real-time pull system. It means that you can call, and we've always got someone in Module 2 or Module 3, and we can kick a resume over to you. Whereas again, more traditional approaches are, well, we just placed everybody, we're recruiting now, we'll have another cohort in the winter, can we get back to you in May? No, I need a welder for second shift next week. So one of the advantages of open entry, open exit is that our employer partners have a real-time pull system to pull entry-level talent from. Also, so the question people always ask is, how do you do open entry, open exit? That must be very messy because you've got people starting at all different points and working at all different kinds of rates. The answer is that we don't attempt to run it like a school at all. So rather what we want to do is run it as a simulated work environment. So if you think about the jobs that you've had, we don't say, well, Derek just started this week, so we're just going to do really easy things for the next month, and then we'll progress up to intermediate things, and 2 months from now, if he's ready, we'll do advanced things, and we're going to do them in this highly specific order. Well, that's not the way the real world works. Your first day may be crazy, and they just knock you, and I'm sure it is in all of your shops. The new guy starts, and they start on a day when it's an emergency everywhere. And so we really, the whole culture of our shop is meant to simulate a shop. It's hands-on, it's practical. And kind of the third best practice, the third leg of the stool, is we use industry credentials. So in our CNC program and in the brake press program, we're using credentials established by National Institute for Metalworking Skills, and I could field lots of questions about those too in the Q&A, just don't want to drill too deep. And then in welding, we do credentials AWS, American Welding Society. And then trainees in all of the programs, welding or CNC, are also attain the OSHA 10 hour for general industry. A key part of our program design, though, is that we integrate soft skills training into the technical curriculum. So trainees are also getting work readiness, computer skills, financial education, as well as supportive services they need to kind of stabilize things so that by the time they hit your door, they're pretty much ready to rock. I just want to say a couple words about business services. I don't know if I'm going over on time. Am I okay there? Looks like they started late. Okay. I did mention we have a second family of programs. Our business and workforce services does customized worker training on the firm side. And I have a few catalogs again. I don't want to drill down too deep on any one slide, but if anyone has interested in follow-up to, just some ideas for programs you may want to start or programs that you might want to look for in your region. Our training capabilities, we do a lot of work in the following buckets. Basic skills, that could be shop math, print reading, metrology, manufacturing skills. We do a lot of hands-on customized training in all aspects of CNC, milling, turning operation, milling, turning programming, CAD, every kind of welding, stick, MIG, TIG, punch press, brake press. We do some work in quality assurance, as well as kind of either longer classes or just very short day-long seminars in topics like SPC or GD&T. Mostly aimed at the shop floor operator, though. We're not really, JARC wouldn't necessarily be the group you'd want to call if your senior engineering leadership was looking for an advanced training in Six Sigma. Our expertise really is working with the shop floor workers to kind of prepare them to participate in these processes. We do a ton of training in safety, OSHA 10 and 30, a lot of work in forklift, as well as just kind of breakout topics. Maybe you don't want an OSHA 10, but we just want to run everyone through PPE today or something like that. And we do some lean manufacturing, less ISO and QS than lean proper, 5S and things like that. Just to customize the training for people, we've developed a number of proprietary diagnostic tools that we use, because if we're truly going to customize the training, we kind of need to see where people are and also what your expectations are. So we've developed what we call skills inventories. And this is just more or less an inventory. I can go, for example, through a CNC department and just check people's ability to execute basic operator functions or basic setup functions on a milling machine. We've also, in recent years, one of the growing areas of our business has been to work with some of our employer partners to develop what we call customized apprenticeship programs or career path plans. And we make it, so it's not a DOL-centered thing at all. It's not DOL, it's employer-centered. So we work with the employer to design a career path plan that makes sense for them. And it works kind of this way. You would be a machine operator A when you've done all the things on that line. You would be a CNC machinist A when you've taken all of that coursework, demonstrated these competencies, and attained those credentials. So our approach to career path planning is that it weaves together three elements: coursework, demonstration of hands-on competencies, and relevant industry credentials. And we think that we're onto something, because when our employers say they want an apprenticeship program, they're not really saying that they'd like to get, necessarily an off-the-shelf DOL approach, which works for some. But for some, they're looking for something that's much more intimate, much more customized around their specific manufacturing processes and technologies. So that's I'll kind of leave it off there and hand it over.
So, John?
There you go, John.
Want to give us a little bit of information about your organization?
Absolutely. Just wanted to say, though, my son is also evacuating that area, so I feel for those people.
Yeah.
And I know you weren't expecting to see me here today, but I'm appreciative that Derek asked me to come. Our organization is called the American Center for Student-Run Manufacturing Businesses, and if any of you have heard of Cardinal Manufacturing, it's a student-run business that started in a high school in Strum, Wisconsin. Oddly enough, I first found out about Cardinal Manufacturing in the IMTS show 2012 when I was here. They had a picture on the cover of the magazine about Craig Cegelski and Cardinal Manufacturing. So I caught my eye, I grabbed a copy, took it home, didn't have time to read it at the show, and I read it, and then looked on the YouTube, found a video about Cardinal Manufacturing, looked at that, and I've been doing this, I guess if you count my high school shop classes, I've been doing this 52 years, so I was excited at what I was reading and seeing and thinking, boy, this guy came up with a winner, so how can I get involved? And over a period of time, since then, I've gotten involved, I've helped out, I've done a lot of things, and most recently, in 2017, we filed with the IRS for a nonprofit to be able to have a mission of going out and helping high schools start this type of a program across the country and basically help schools get what we call a student-run business, which is a business that's run by the students. Both the boys and the girls run the business 100%. Craig calls himself the CEO, so he pretty much puts all the responsibility of the business on the students. And how it works is they work with people like you who have shops, welding shops, machine shops, some sort of a manufacturing facility, and they actually make real parts for real people for real money. Typically it's around 25 cents on the dollar to the shop owner. And everybody seems to win, because when Craig first started at the school, he said, John, they gave me a budget of $15,000. And I was supposed to have some sort of a manufacturing program. Now this is in a school with a student body of 160 kids in the middle of Wisconsin. He goes, where am I going to get money to buy machinery and tooling and computers? And so he had, a little bit of ingenuity, and he said, I'm going to figure it out. And so, he started at another school about 20 years ago, and then 11 years ago he started at Cardinal Manufacturing. Last year I think the student-run business grossed $150,000, and by the time they paid all the bills and the equipment and everything, I think they netted about $37,000. So, and not only does that give him money to buy new equipment, new tooling, keep the thing going, you know, it becomes self-funded and self-sustaining, but it also gives the students an opportunity to do something that a lot of students don't get to do. They have to take on the responsibility of running this thing. You know, and some of you might find this rather strange. I know I did when I was talking to him. You know, I said, Craig, it seems to me like, you know, how technical, how much do you know about this stuff? You know, how do you teach CNC? You know, that sort of thing, because I've been machining most of my life, and I wanted to know, how do you get the technical stuff in here? And he goes, well, I've got to be honest with you. He goes, I have a machining background before I got my, my degree for teaching. He said, but it was only for manual machining. So he goes, I can barely turn a CNC machine on. I looked at him and I'm going, what? So how do these kids run this stuff? And he goes, well, what I do is I tell them, look, it's your business. We give you, at the end of the year, every student gets a small profit sharing check. So it's your profit sharing. So it's your responsibility to, you know, get with, the younger students need to get with the older students and know how to do this. You guys need to get together and work as a team, because if you don't work as a team, your profit sharing is going to go down the tubes. And basically, you have to go to YouTube, you have to call the vendor, Haas, Mazak, whoever you're working with. You call them, and if you need help, find out how it gets done. Call somebody, do something. But I'm not going to be out there having to show you how to do every little thing on this machine. And I said, well, how many times do they crash a machine? How do your machines still run? He goes, they run perfectly. They don't crash a machine. He goes, a few of them have broken cutters, but we haven't had any hard crashes or anything. So and he said, but John, he goes, the real key point to all of this isn't so much that. He says, I start this program in the 7th grade because their school goes down to the 6th grade. Their high school goes all the way down to 6th grade, and soon it'll go to 1st grade. They're doing some expansion. He says, but what I focus on, as soon as I can, as young as I can get them, I focus on soft skills. He said, because a lot of these kids don't come from, you know, 2-parent, solid, constructive homes. Some of them have issues. Some of them need help. And they need to learn how to look a person in the eye, how to shake their hand, how to talk to them, how to communicate with their teammates. How do they do all this stuff? He said, the sooner I get them and the longer I have them, when they leave as a senior and they graduate, he goes, I don't have students I don't have a company that doesn't want every one of my students, or a school or something. Some go to college, some go to tech school, some go in the military, some go right into a shop. He goes, they don't all take the same path, but wherever they go, we keep track of them, and they all seem to have these great track records. And he says, it's more because I spend the time with them on the soft skills than it was the time that I spent with them on the machining skills. But when they come out of there, they can run a machine. They can walk into, well, as a matter of fact, when I was working for Autodesk, I took the new Autodesk Fusion software in there and I said, Craig, here, you can have all this for free. Tons of it, as much as you want. Any education facility, they start using it. They learn how to use it. They program their parts. They set them up. They run them. And so that was the first phase. And now we're at a point where we're shifting gears with the nonprofit. We came up with some ideas that I think is going to revolutionize this country, and that is the next phase is we're going into automation. We're working on it right now at the school. We're getting machines that are hooked up with robots, and we're going to work with our industry partners and say, do you have any production work? Because now we're going to do some production work where each student's going to spend at least 1 month in this production cell. We're not going to turn slave labor into them and turn them into slave laborers, but we're going to give them an exposure to a robotic cell, an opportunity to understand how to program this robot and how it works. And then we're going to make parts, and they're going to make parts in the cell, and they're going to be, when it's their month, they're responsible for that cell. And they're responsible for it, to the point where, maybe the cell will call them on their cell phone and say, hey, I've stopped running because we're going to run them lights out during the night. We're going to increase the revenue for the school program so we can buy more sophisticated equipment that's more expensive. And we're going to help our industry partner. If the industry partner or someone helps us get the machine in the first place, we're going to give, maybe we haven't worked out the price schedule yet, but we're going to give, some money back to the industry partner. And as the machinery gets paid off, we're going to give more back to the partner, and hopefully get back to where the industry partner is getting like 75% profit off of whatever is being done in the program. And then we're going to do something that's, people say, hey, that sounds kind of amazing. And we've already got industry partners that said they would do this. So we're going to ask them to give back. If you're making 75 cents off of every dollar, we want you to go to your customer who you're making those parts for that we're working on, and we want you to drop the price some amount. We want you to lower manufacturing costs in America at the same time that we're filling the skills gap. And if we do that, we can teach kids that not only does all of this matter, but giving back matters as well. And our country needs it. So, and on top of that, one more thing that we think we can do, because of the fact that it is a business in a high school, we believe that we can find a way to pay teachers for these programs a higher salary. I have a teaching certificate in the state of Idaho to teach machining, computer-aided design, and computer-aided manufacturing. And I went to my local high school and I said, I'd really like to get more involved in the school. Would you consider hiring me? And he said, John, we'd hire you in a minute. Would you consider our salary? I said, what is it? He said, $28,000 a year. And then I said, I've considered it as long as I can, and I can't do it. So, I have 5 kids to feed, and I can't do it on $28,000 a year. So we know that there are people maybe sitting right here that would really be a good teacher, but you can't afford to quit your job for $28,000 a year. So we are working with this program and figuring out how can I work with the Department of Education and go to DC and say, look, we don't need any more money for bricks and mortar. Our industry partners are helping. They're helping get things going. We don't need any more money for machinery and equipment. We would like you to take the money that you've been spending on all of those things, and we would like you to reallocate it to higher teacher salaries for these programs. And so I don't know what kind of response I'm going to get. They might laugh at me, but got to ask them anyway. And so if that doesn't work, then we're going to look into the program itself and say, how can we make enough money in this student-run business to pay this teacher more money? And so basically, Derek, that's kind of it in a nutshell. So.
Good deal. Yeah, it's funny because when I was scrambling to find another speaker, I just happened to walk by Modern Machine Shop's booth, and I saw kids in red shirts. I'm like, those are the Cardinal kids. And then I saw kids in the white shirt. I'm like, I wonder if that's John's group. And that's where I found you. So that worked out nicely. So you can have a seat if you would. So Guy, what does the training relative to CNC machining look like at JARC? And who helps put that curriculum together?
Well, I'm kind of the overall lead in curriculum, but the way the curriculum evolves at JARC is first of all, we have an industry advisory council. So that's a group of our closest employer partners. It's employer partners that hire out of our job training programs, and they also, frequently use us for worker training. So they have input. I've got a background in CNC, so I probably played the biggest role in the CNC curriculum. And we also encourage the instructors to, we have a curriculum working group that the instructors participate in. But the content, as far as that goes, is the curriculum is Module 1, the trainees learn how to program, set up, and operate CNC machining tools for milling operations. Then in Module 2, they attain a NIMS credential for CNC milling. And it's a pretty rigorous credential. In order to attain it, the trainees have to write the program, G-code, set up and machine the part, and then the part is sent out to a third party for inspection. Some of the tolerances are pretty tight, for trainees, plus or minus 2/1000 7 inch. And then if the part passes, they sit for an online exam. And then in Module 3, they learn how to program, set up, and operate for CNC turning operations. And they can go on and pursue a NIMS turning credential if they want. Typically, people are placed by that time. But in Ravenswood, in Chicago, in particular, the new norm has become that trainees are leaving with both NIMS credentials before they get placed. So real pleased with that.
So the philosophy there is to treat trainees as employees. Talk about the value of that.
Sure. Well, so when you visit JARC, and any of you are welcome at any time. You walk in, the first thing that's going to hit you is a time clock. So what we're trying to do is establish employer expectations and the culture of manufacturing in the training program. Again, think about a lot of people in our program are highly barrier job seekers that don't have history of success in the workplace. So we're really trying to make it feel and look like work. So we don't refer to them as students, they're trainees. Our instructors function more like shop leads, the program coordinators and caseworkers. We don't call them that. They're really role modeling the behavior of HR in the environment. We have pretty tough standards. We tell you, because it's a dual customer approach, and so we tell the trainee, our end customer, employer partners can't use you unless you can be here every single day on time without exception. That's our expectation, because if you can't do that, then our end customers can't use you. So we're kind of setting very high expectations at the start of the program. And it's interesting because when we first started doing that, there was some pushback in the nonprofit world. You can't do that. These people aren't ready for that. You're being too harsh. And what we found was really the opposite. We have a very tough program, but we have over 90% completion rate. And the ones that don't complete are basically because we terminated them for attendance or performance. Very rarely do trainees quit the program. And I think that what we've learned from this is that a lot of people in our workforce system, they're so used to everybody patronizing them and condescending and, it's okay, it's all okay. And they really relish being part of a program that sets and enforces high standards of behavior and accountability. And you can kind of see the difference after a few weeks. Some of the trainees are kind of walking around with more pride and a sense of purpose. And so that's kind of the vibe that we hope to create by replicating those behaviors.
So John, let's go back to you real quick. Talk about how did your personal experience going through apprenticeship, how did that kind of shape what your program looks like today?
Well, my apprenticeship, I served an apprenticeship at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory out in California, which was a 4-year state indentured apprenticeship at, a pretty amazing place to serve one. So I've always been, going through that apprenticeship and the training program that we had, I've always been very appreciative of that and very interested in kids getting proper training, So the program, when I saw Craig's program, like I said, he came up with this idea of actually teaching kids to do real work. And I thought, that's what they love to do. They love to make something, and they love to, like some of those kids, they've made parts, and they take it down the road, and maybe it's a part for somebody's, some farmer's tractor or something, right? And they get the experience of making the part, selling the part, getting it paid, and then they may even go help the farmer put it on his tractor. I mean, I got to tell you, I was amazed because they have a pretty good football team at that school. And it's a small school, And Craig tells me, John, would you believe that in this community, it's a small community, would you believe that this manufacturing program is as popular as our football team? So, but the apprenticeship, I think the apprenticeship is great. The school itself is registered in Wisconsin as a youth apprenticeship program. And I would say, to me, apprenticeships are phenomenal. I'm glad that the government is really getting into it and looking back at it and trying to develop new ways for apprenticeships. And I got to hand it to them for doing that,
So how do you get started working with a school for this type of program?
Well, typically, if we had our first student-run business summit on Tuesday, and I gave a presentation down in the student summit. And typically what happens is a school will call, or they'll hear about it, or they'll look on our website. You can look on our website, studentrunbusiness.com. And they'll look at the videos and read, and they'll get interested, and then they'll call. And so I'll talk to them, and we'll say, okay, I explain. I say, have you looked at the website? Have you shown it to your faculty? I try to get them to look and dig as much as they can on their own and come back, and then I say, talk to your board, your school board, talk to your people. Is this something you really want to do? And if they come back to me, I say, come back to me and let me know. If they come back and say, yes, we really want to do this, then I schedule a community meeting. And that community meeting basically consists of the faculty, the potential students that they would have maybe for the first year starting the program. And actually, you have to know this program probably takes 2 to 3 years to start. You can't be making good parts, even though the soft skills are there, you can't be making good parts, for someone, like Guy was saying. We do technical training. I didn't want to sound like we don't, but they have to be technically competent to do this. So 2 to 3 years if you're going to do this. And that's what I tell them. It's, you have to commit to it. And then so we have this meeting. We get the faculty, the potential students, their parents. We ask for the industry partners like yourselves. We invite you to the meeting. Come and hear what we have to say. And any legislators that are in the area, we ask them to come. And basically, I present this. I present all the facts and statistics and all the successes. And then we say, if you're interested still, then we can try to help you get it started and try to mentor you. Craig does workshops, and as things grow, as our nonprofit grows, our vision and my hope is that I'll be able to walk into schools and have enough money in our nonprofit to say, hey, I'm going to buy you a CNC machine to start up with, or I'm going to buy you some computers, or I'm going to buy you something. We got to get you going. And, it took Craig 11 years. We're trying to get the nonprofit funding going so we can help these people start much faster, And so that's pretty much how we're doing it.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Not yet? Okay. So Guy, JARC offers support for those who need it beyond manufacturing training. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so alongside our technical training curriculum, JARC operates what's called a Center for Working Families approach. And it's not elective. If you're a trainee in the Careers in Manufacturing programs, you're going to participate in these programs as well. And so trainees get income supports. That is, we look at, just kind of do an assessment of the household, what the situation in the household is. They get a series of financial education curricula that kind of starts at the very basic level, putting together a family budget, doing a credit pull. And a lot of times the trainees, coming into our program, their lives are just a mess. And so one of the things that we can do in the 14, 20, 32 weeks that they're with us is to also kind of work on stabilizing their life and getting them together so that by the time they get out the door, they're higher functioning and they're not distracted by problems outside of work. Also, one of the key elements, I think, to the program, though, is soft skills. Trainees get that in a variety of ways. There is a work readiness curriculum. Like if you visit JARC Monday through Thursday, it's all about the technical training. But if you visit JARC on a Friday, you're going to see people in a work readiness class or a financial education class. And because frequently people who have not functioned, have not had a great success at work, it is not just the lack of technical skills, as many of you know. So there's a whole work readiness curriculum that everything from conflict resolution to communicating with your supervisor to employer expectations gets covered. Alongside that, though, there's a range of kind of high-touch one-on-one services that we do. Mock interviews, mock technical interviews, resume development, job searches, a lot of candid conversations with them about the kind of company they should be at. Not every company is a great fit for every trainee. Kind of talking about the culture that they're going to succeed in and trying to make job placements that are appropriate to that.
Are there any there any requirements, education-wise,
No,
to enroll?
no, we don't require a high school degree or GED. What we need for you to succeed in our skills training programs is that you're reading or doing math at a 9th grade level or higher. But again, if you come in and you're testing, reading or doing math at a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade level, we've got a bridge program, and we use a manufacturing-centered curriculum to kind of remediate these literacy and numeracy gaps. And the results are off the chart. In a typical year, trainees in our bridge program go up 4 grade levels in math in 12 weeks, which if you compare that to a traditional community college approach is just off the charts. And the reason we think, though, is that we're using a manufacturing-centered curriculum. It's not abstract Sally and John and apples and oranges. It's math that's concrete and practical, and it's related to what they see going on in the shop.
Can you think of, are there a couple, maybe one profile case study of a person that's gone through the program and talk about the success?
So there's a lot. So we have a lot of stories that really tug at the heart, and so many trainees we're really proud of. I don't really want to raise any one person up over the others, but just to give you one example, I'm going next week with a women in manufacturing breakfast, and one of the trainees that I was trying to get to go with us is someone that just came a very long journey. This is someone that had felony convictions in armed robbery and narcotics, and kind of got out and got that kind of last best chance, make a U-turn in my life. And she went through our training programs and studied CNC, and then progressed into machine maintenance, and then became an actual machine mechanic, and then became a supervisor, and now she's in management. And so that's just what a journey for someone with all those marks against them, in 5 years' time. But we have a lot of people that have they've made a wrong turn early in life, and they're smart and they're good people, and they just kind of need a second chance. Our program, though, is competitive. It has high standards, so it's not, I'm okay, you're okay. They understand coming in, this is a competitive program that, sets and maintains high standards, and this may be my last best chance to really turn it around.
John, what about you?
Well, I think I know we have one gal, and I shouldn't say we. Craig's program has one gal that she started out as a welder and graduated, went on to tech school, and she became a certified welder. And so you don't see that happening a lot right out of high school for a young lady, but she seemed to love to weld. And so I think that was kind of a highlight. Another highlight is Tally Berger, who is his office manager now. She went through the program, and she ended up coming back to the program to work in the program. So there's some pretty fun stories, but yes, it's very good.
How do you see the program evolving? What would you like it to look like in another 5 years or so?
Well, I think what I would like to see is the nation and the people that are involved in the program, especially the kids and the companies who hire them. I'd like to see them prosper, and I'd like to see them be involved in something that's cost effective, because I think it's really difficult for a program to survive if they have to go back and get grants every year. And a lot of them, and I had the last slide on my presentation. It's got this. It's this dark slide, and it has a Bridgeport milling machine and a tool in the spindle, a little setup, and it's got these 2 little LED lights, and everything else is almost darkened out except for that picture, right? So you can kind of picture that in your mind. And so what I put on it was what I lived. It was like in my day when the school budget got cut, the shop classes were the first things to go. And what it says at the bottom is, with this program, I think you're going to see the lights off at the whole school, and the shop class lights are still going to be on, because it's a business in the school. It makes, you guys know business, it's business. And if they do it well, they're going to stay open. So that's what I would like to see is get out there, replicate it, and if more companies are saving money and we do production and more companies are actually giving back, then what's going to happen to our country? It's going to prosper. It's going to get better. You know, I mean, if the president knew what I was telling you right now, he'd be calling me up and saying, what are you talking about, John? Lowering manufacturing costs and training people at the same time? Are you crazy? He'd probably say, you know, but come and talk to me. I want to hear this, you know. So I don't know. That's what I'm looking for, you know.
Guy, what about you? How do you see JARC evolving?
So we're in a, it's real neat. We've just completed a pretty successful strategic plan in which we set out to scale our impact through a variety of strategies, including geographic expansion and replication. So we replicated our new programs to some new environments. The thing that I'm extremely proud of is the replication of our careers in manufacturing programs and worker training programs in Baltimore, Maryland. And we were able to do that with a really outstanding consortium of employer partners, as well as really wonderful support from the state of Maryland. We're growing, we're thriving. I think we're thriving because of a lot of, we're good at what we do, but also it's a very favorable external period. The national conversation around manufacturing is a complete 180. I mean, that conversation, if you compare it to what the conversation around manufacturing was in this country 10 years ago, that has shifted very favorably to everyone in this room. But secondly, the conversation around workforce development has shifted in a very favorable direction. The new Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that shapes our federal workforce system was approved by Congress in the summer of 2013 by a vote of 413 to 6. Okay, nothing happens in this country by a margin of 413 to 6. But what it shows is there's really a strong bipartisan recognition in the need to have an effective, relevant, publicly invested workforce system. And the content is what matters. I think we've made some breakthroughs in workforce development. Increasingly, the expectation on our workforce systems is that they are to be dual customer, they are to be sector specific, and employers are to have a voice. So if you're asking me what I'd like to see more of in the future is I would like to see the organized voice of the end customer, the employer partners, really relevant and meaningful in the training programs. I mean, it's been decisive at JARC. And so I have to think in all of your environments, in your local workforce systems, among community colleges, other training organizations, the more that employers are encouraged to have a voice and really have a voice, that's when you're going to start to see programs that are really meeting your needs and working toward the skills gap.
Where do you find instructors for these programs?
So I think that's our secret sauce. So we don't recruit high school teachers and train them to be machinists. We recruit people from the trades, so myself included. I was a machinist, but if you go through the JARC faculty, everybody there was machining or welding or in logistics or plant managers. So I think that's the secret. To be on our faculty, you have to have been good enough at this to do it for a living, we think, to really have kind of the credibility and it's not just about being able to execute the curriculum. It's also about having the credibility and the authenticity. You know, because if you invite me into your plant to teach a welding class, you know, your welders are going to have their arms crossed. Who is this guy? I've been here 10 years. Who is this guy going to come in and tell me how to do this better? So the instructor that we put out in the field had better have the experience and credibility to hold his or her own in that kind of conversation.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Yeah, right here.
Right.
especially additive manufacturing, laser, and there's all kinds of really maker spaces.
Mm-hmm.
People going in multiple directions. So I'm just wondering how you think we can attract more people into CNC and machining.
Yeah, I think that challenge and effort is already underway in a lot of environments because the employers need to be able to, not just compete for warm bodies, but we want to be able to compete for the, bright, highly motivated, talented young people. So we have to find a way to plant a positive pole of attraction that can compete with four-year universities. So I think that finding very public ways to communicate how cool the technology is important. But I think another part of it is to demonstrate the career paths. So there's some really good things out there that some of the trade organizations have put together that shows that, hey, when you're 23, you could be a graduate with a liberal arts degree, and here's your earning possibilities, and here's the student debt that you're going to have, as opposed to you could have completed an apprenticeship program and already own your, have the money together for a mortgage. So I think that being able to put together a narrative that shows, hey, this really is a pretty bright alternate route, you should give it real thought. We want to be competing for kids that are good at math, like computers, like solving problems. And I think that if we present the content, we can present a pretty compelling alternative. There's a lot of the narrative is around, this isn't the manufacturing of your father. It's new, it's higher tech. I mean, sometimes I think that stick gets bent a little bit too far. It still is dirty in a lot of our shops, and it still is kind of, But if you like working with your hands and making things, this might be for you. I also think, though, that one of the challenges we face in our sector, though, is wages. So jobs are coming back. That's no secret. Industry's growing. Wage growth is not quite kept pace with that. So I think that that's something that as a sector we can work on. But I think that we have advantages there because we actually have very rich career paths in manufacturing. So if we're working in our companies and in our workforce system, not just to train people for entry-level jobs, but thinking thoughtfully about career paths, we can see some wage progression in manufacturing as well, which is going to be important. Because if I'm a young person and I'm considering a career in manufacturing, it looks really good, starting wage of $16, $18 an hour. But if I also look at it and see that, 10 years out, I'm still going to be making the same range, it's not as attractive.
Can
Can
I
I see
address
another hand?
how
Sure.
we do that with the younger kids? How we do it with the younger kids is we basically are going out with this nonprofit and we're saying, hey, when we try to build these shops, we're trying to get the income and the funding to do some of the things that you were talking about. It takes money to do all that stuff. But I've got a nephew that has an old blacksmith machine shop, and he has kids coming in from the high school, and they don't want to stay there. It's a dump. They want to get out of there. They want to work in a clean new shop. I mean, they're interested in the technology, and we have to bring it to them, and we have to show it to them, and we have to be enthused about what the heck we're doing. I'm 66 years old, and I still love this stuff. So I mean, it takes enthusiasm. If you're not interested in it, do you think those kids are going to be interested in it? No way. So that's I mean, you got to be fired up about this stuff, don't you? Absolutely. This is like a kid in a candy store to me when I come to this show. And I tell the kids, and when they come, when we bring them, they go through here and their eyes just light up. It's like, whoa. And that's what we have to bring to each community. We have to do it in each school. We have to get them excited about what we do, because what we do is cool and it's important. So that's what we do, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Did I see another hand up earlier?
I could just add one more thought to the question too, which is I think also that's the importance of having really robust industry advisory councils that lead into your training organizations and community colleges, because one of the things that employers can give back is field trips to your cool facility. having someone young and talented on your staff speak to the students. We just toured the Tooling and Manufacturing Association a couple of weeks ago, and so the staff person that they had host the field trip for us was, you know, exciting and charismatic and spoke about her career in manufacturing with a lot of passion. And so I think that hosting field trips, I think, is, or being a guest speaker, or interning, you know, there's so many ways that you can interface with training programs to get the message out.
So I have a question. How do we get to the parents who still have that idea that manufacturing facilities are completely grimy places to work?
We changed the facilities.
Yeah.
You know, you have to put these nice facilities in the community, so when they come to an open house, Craig has open houses every year. He's got a school of 160 kids. 1,000 people were in the open house when I was there. And he brings celebrity guests, and they come and they look at it, and all the parents are going, wow, I didn't even know you were doing this down here. You know, and they live in the same town. So you have to get the facility, and then they come out and they see it and they start getting enthused, and they wear shirts and they do branding and they do all this stuff like a football team would do, right? I mean, it seems like if I was a kid and I walked into an old shop and it was a dump, I'd go, there's got to be something better than this, you know? So I think you have to look at it from the kid's perspective. And if you do that, I think you're going to find, you know, the right solution. Mm-hmm. And this, I'm not talking about for guys, people, but I'm talking about for the younger kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If we have no other questions, we're right up about on time here to end this. Before we go to the next presentation, I just want to thank John and Guy for taking part of this, so please give them a hand.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.